I think starting off with a very easy job for you. Do you want to sort of just introduce yourself, just to kick us off for the people at home?
Sure. Hello, my name is Ingvild Deila.
It's lovely to have you with us, MCM. Have you been enjoying being part of the Comic Con?
Definitely. It's been a wonderful experience so far. It's my first time in Birmingham, first time with MCM, and I'm very glad to be here.
And of course, one of the reasons you're here is because you have a small but very unique part in one of the biggest film franchises of all time. Can you talk a little bit about how that journey started for you?
Sure, yeah. Well, I never thought I would be in such a huge and beloved universe as Star Wars is, and on top of that, playing such an iconic character as Princess Leia. So it all started with a very anonymous casting call, a very secretive casting call in London, and then it led to 3 rounds of auditions, and in the end they cast me, which I still can't believe, but I'm very grateful.
Obviously, for traditional casting, they're looking for you as a performer and your look and all these kind of things. I'm curious, given the specific nature of the effects that were going on for this appearance, can you talk a little bit about what they said they were looking for and what you think made you the right fit for the role in the literal sense?
Yes, well, I was lucky in the sense that me and Carrie Fisher are very similar in height and build, so that was something that had to be there, sort of the first hurdle, and then it was a matter of being able to mimic her facial expressions in a believable way, and I prepared by watching the old Star Wars films on repeat for a whole weekend, again and again, paying special attention to her facial expressions, stopping, looking at myself in the mirror, looking again. So it was a very minute, detailed process, and very different from how I normally prepare for a role. So, but very, very interesting as well.
And as someone who has literally studied Carrie Fisher's facial expressions, can you talk about the things that you discovered doing that in terms of her unique mannerisms as a performer?
Well, it was also a discovery in general of how each person has sort of a fingerprint or a signature way of moving their muscles in their face, and also body posture, where they keep their weight, point of gravity. So it was, I don't know, it's hard to, I'm trying to think now if there's anything particular she did. I remember there was something about how she flicked her eyes, like in that scene where she meets Vader for the first time, like right after where in the very beginning of A New Hope, and she meets Vader in the hallway, and this little interrogation scene, and I remember I saw it again and again, and like how she flickers out her eyes when she talks about how annoyed the Imperial Senate will be or something. And yeah, it's like, it's all there, this information, but we don't really have the time to process it. So it was interesting to slow down the time and really take a proper look.
I think obviously it's such a beautiful moment that ties together the new films and the old films.
Yes.
How does it feel to you now, knowing that you're at that connection point between Rogue One and this new world of adventures we're having, and these classic films that mean so much to so many people?
Well, it's a huge honor and also a huge responsibility. I was very nervous about how fans would react to bringing Princess Leia back and tying together the old and the new, and Rogue One being sort of a more experimental standalone piece, but still very close to the trilogy in terms of the spirit, the grittiness. So yeah, it was overwhelming in a way to stand in between those two, the old and the new. But I just had to trust that Lucasfilm and Disney had made the right decision, and that I was doing my job well, and that it's sort of out of my hands.
And just in terms of the actual techniques that were used, obviously I think audiences look at the screen and just think, oh, they've done it with computers. Can you talk about what the actual exact process was for you in terms of how much of your face you were actually seeing versus how much is CGI, and whether or not you were marked up with little dots or if it was just a normal performance?
Yeah, well, it started with the sort of technical prep in LA, in San Francisco. So they did sort of it's called the light stage, where you put in a globe of light and they take pictures like 360 and make a digital model of you. So that's what they did with me and Guy Henry. And then I had to hold still and have sort of the basic human facial expressions, like smiling or sad or frowning or crying. And then I also looked at specific facial expressions on Carrie Fisher's face and tried to copy them as well while doing the light stage. And then the brilliant people at ILM worked on my face, I think, for 6 months or maybe more. And then for the shoot itself in London, it was more of a regular shoot, at least for me, except that there were more cameras on set. So there were fewer points where you could look at without like looking into the lens. So you had to be a bit careful. And and of course you had I had the dots on my face, so I looked a bit like an exotic fish, or that I had some kind of strange disease. So people had a bit of trouble focusing on my eyes, I remember, when talking to them. But for me, it was pretty straightforward in terms of the performance on the day, which was great to have that freedom.
I mean, obviously, it's very exciting for fans to see these cameos and the gifts that technology is now giving us. I guess I'm curious, as an actor yourself, how you feel about the broader issue of, particularly as this technology improves and becomes more fluid and more easy, the ethics of kind of portraying other people and the extent to which using other people's likeness and bringing characters back or making characters look like younger versions of themselves.
Yes.
I guess, how do you feel about that as a wider issue and how it changes the notion of what it means to be an actor?
Yes, it's a very interesting question and thought-provoking development, which is happening very rapidly. And I'm quite sure we will see a lot more of this in the future, because it gives more freedom for the filmmakers, that they can have these virtual people on file, and they don't have to pay them as much, and they don't need a trailer and so on. And also you can create more fantastical expressions on screen that can be more interesting to watch and so on. But for the actor, it becomes a bit of a dilemma, because you don't know what your image will be used for and in what context, like giving away your rights and also the ethics of bringing people back. Like I remember there was a commercial with Audrey Hepburn for the Cadbury chocolate, I think, and one with Bruce Lee for some beer or something, which I read he didn't drink, or he would definitely not have approved of supporting this brand of whiskey or whatever it was. So it's difficult, but it's kind of inevitable. And I guess the sooner they have figured out the ethics of this, the better, so we don't walk into this and sort of regret it later. So it has to be done with care. But I think I'm all for new innovations within technology. So I think it's a great tool, but it's how we use the tool that matters.
I guess very specifically for you, having been a part of that process of bringing Carrie back, albeit for that very brief moment, I'm curious if in the future you have the opportunity to do the same in subsequent Star Wars films and spin-offs and prequels and sequels, because it seems we're never going to stop getting those. Would you be happy to go back and do that again and be part of helping to do that for a second time?
Yeah, I think it would be wonderful and a huge challenge. For me, it depends on how the family of Carrie Fisher feel, like how they feel about it. But if they are okay with it and if it's done in a respectful way, then yes, it's kind of an offer you can't refuse, really. But it would be really, really scary, but I'd still say yes. Yeah.
And is there anything else you've already said yes to? I guess my final question, what else have you got coming up at the moment we should be excited about?
Well, right now I'm working on a strange project. It's part web series, part feature film, and it's called Out of Place Artifact. It's a Belgian-Brazilian film, and I play an assassin who works for sort of a Viking-esque secret order, and it takes place all over the world. And it's going to be a strange tale, but I'm very excited. So I'm off to shoot in Norway in the snow with some Vikings in early December, and it should be a fun project.
Wrap up warm. Good luck with the Vikings. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.